Hey, I hope you're enjoying the Uncle Gold podcast. If you want to support this whole project, make sure you go to the second channel called Uncle Gold Podcast Clips. There I create short form videos with the best topics from the interviews that I do on the main channel. You get their videos daily. They're separated nicely into playlists so you can choose the topic that you want to watch most. And now let's go back to the video.
What is next on the list?
So next would be lab grown or cultured meat. I think most of the marketing people involved in this prefer it if we call it cultured meat, because lab grown kind of conjures the images of mad scientists. And of course, this is, I think, at least in my view, the sexiest of the sort of new foods that are coming along the line. And this is actual meat as opposed to the others, which are trying to imitate meat. This is meat that comes from a living animal, originally anyway, and doesn't require the animal to die. And that sounds kind of gruesome, actually, when I put it like that. But we're talking about a tiny biopsy, a small amount of cells, the kind of thing that you might have done if you have a medical issue that is feared to be cancer. You get a little biopsy done, you get a plaster over the wound, and you're good. That biopsy is taken. The cells in it are compelled to reproduce, and you end up growing an enormous amount of meat from this biopsy. Now, you can biopsy an area of the animal that you want to reproduce and take the mature or primary cells from that area and reproduce those. Say you want, a stomach cells for, or not stomach cells, but like belly cells for a pork belly or
chicken
shoulder
breast
cells. Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
And then reproduce them. Now, when you grow the meat, you're not necessarily going to get an actual pork chop or chicken breast. You will get meat of that quality, provided you provide it the right nutrient mix as it grows. But what you can do is basically put that in a blender, and you've got, minced meat. You can create chicken nuggets, actual chicken nuggets from a chicken that didn't die.
Yeah.
You can create beef burgers, patties and pork sausages, all these things using meat, actual meat, without death associated with it, which I think is a wonderful thing.
Yeah. How does the actual process of growing them look like? Have you looked into that?
Yeah, so it's essentially, like, at the moment, it's not yet scaled up to a full production level. They're getting close to it, but it's still kind of at the stage of almost like lab work. So you take a biopsy, you put that in a petri dish, you put a nutrient mix around it, and it does its own thing, and it fills up your petri dish. Now, that can obviously be scaled up to more complex production rates, and as I say, it's not there yet, but it is close. For example, in 2013, the first lab-grown hamburger was created, and that cost $300,000 for the one burger, and took over 2 years of work to produce that burger. So not ideal.
Yeah.
Now, now in 2021, the same company is able to produce a burger for $10. And so
that sounds more reasonable.
Certainly, yeah. It's still a bit pricey, but I think with mass adoption, mass adoption will come once the price comes down. So it's kind of a chicken and the egg scenario, if you'll forget the pun. But I think that as more work is done and that trajectory continues, we can see it get to a price tipping point. And maybe all it will take is investment to sort of subsidize the production of it early on, and get people accepting of it, and that will allow the consumer demand to drive the production costs down.
Yeah.
Now, I wanted to get into the idea of the primary cells, that is the cells that you biopsy from the part of the animal that you want to reproduce. So that means like essentially poking a hole in a chicken's breast and taking another chicken and poking a hole in its wing and all of that. Or you can take stem cells And you can use stem cells, which are essentially unprogrammed cells that haven't been differentiated into different parts of the body yet. And you can get these from adult animals. It is easier to get them from immature animals or fetal animals. But if your aim is not to kill the animal, that may not be practical. But in any case, you can get stem cells, and they can, given the right environmental cues, i.e. the nutrient mix that they're in, the kind of surfaces that they're up against, the temperatures of the areas that they're in, those will all trigger the stem cell to form different parts of the animal based on the DNA that it contains. The pros of that is that stem cells will reproduce an awful lot faster than the primary cells that you take from the mature parts of the body. The downside is, well, I suppose another pro is that it's diverse. You can make a chicken wing or a chicken breast or whatever you want, or you know, obviously taken from a chicken. Stem cells from a cow, you can create a steak or create whatever cut of meat you want based on your nutrient mix. However, the downside is that you need to know exactly what the nutrient and environmental factors that are needed to create those parts of the body are. And that's very difficult to ascertain, you know, from the outside watching an animal grow. So there would be probably a lot of trial and error there. But I think once that's mastered, that actually kind of, it provides an avenue for some really interesting results. So like, say, this is just wildly speculative, but say you want a mammoth steak. So you take a biopsy from an elephant, and maybe using some genetic manipulation to bring it closer to mammoth DNA, you then grow that in the environmental and nutritional factors required to like create a steak of mammoth, and you can be like, this is what mammoth tastes like.
Mammoth steak.
Or do the same thing with birds and produce a dinosaur steak.
I'm pretty sure they dug up some remains of mammoths and things like that. I'm sure we can do some kind of DNA sampling from some part of their body, recreate a mammoth, and then use it for sampling. That sounds like Jurassic Park right there, but I really do believe that in like 10-20 years we'll get there.
It's kind of funny though, like that they never hit upon the idea in Jurassic Park of actually slaughtering any dinosaurs and serving the meat in the restaurants. As insanely expensive as that would probably have been.
Maybe we can patent that idea, you know, and make millions off of it.
So in the near term, we're probably going to see products, like I was saying, of undifferentiated meat products, like chicken nuggets, like burgers, like sausages. But as time goes on, the demand for meat is typically, or at least at the higher end of the market, is typically for specific cuts. So, you know, you want your T-bone steak, you want your fillet, pork fillet, you want your pig belly. All of these cuts that have particular flavors and signature textures and tastes to them and all of that. So a lot of those flavors, textures, and tastes are from the context in which that meat grew. So is it next to a bone? Are there arteries running through it? Is there cartilage supporting it in a particular shape? Is it under tension? Is it under compression? Is this a part of the body that moves a lot? Are these thick muscle fibers that have been developed by moving a lot? And so those are all incredibly complex things to recreate without simply building the animal around it. And so that's an area that is kind of the holy grail of cultured meat, is to create that structure and those conditions that will result in, you know, the perfect steak. So to speak.
Hey, thanks for watching this video. If you want to see the full version, go to the Uncle Gold Podcast YouTube channel or watch the next clip.